I was sitting in the doctor's waiting room when my phone rang. It was my only daughter, Angela. Her voice sounded strange, almost cold as she said, "Mom, we're going on a trip to Europe tomorrow. I already sold your beach house and your car. We needed the money. Bye." And she hung up just like that. 45 years raising her, sacrificing for her, and she discarded me like garbage. But I took a deep breath and smiled because there was something my dear daughter didn't know. My name is Antonia Brooks. I'm 71 years old, and until that moment, I thought I knew my daughter. I had become a widow 6 months ago. My husband, Robert, had passed away from a heart attack while we were eating breakfast, just as we had done every morning for 45 years. That morning, he had served me coffee with cream and toast. As always, he had kissed my forehead and said, "Good morning, my love." Those were his last words. Since then, Angela had been more present in my life, or so I believed. She came to visit 3 times a week. She helped me with the funeral arrangements and accompanied me to the grocery store. She even suggested I see a doctor for a general checkup. "Mom, you need to take better care of yourself now that you're alone," she'd say, with that smile I thought was love, but now I understood was for convenience. The beach house had been our sanctuary for years. Robert and I bought it when Angela was 15 with a lot of hard work and sacrifice. Every summer we'd go, there building memories, celebrating birthdays and Christmases. Angela would bring her boyfriends and later her husband Edward. I would cook for everyone, clean and do the laundry. It was our family tradition. I never thought she'd see it as just money. And the car, that old Ford pickup truck, Robert cared for like his own child. He'd wash it every Sunday, change the oil religiously, and always park it in the same spot under the shade of the tree. Angela knew what that truck meant to me. It was the last thing I had left of him. His scent still lingered on the seats. When she hung up, I stayed there, on that uncomfortable green plastic chair, surrounded by other sick people. And for the first time in months, I didn't cry. Something strange happened inside me, a calm I hadn't felt since Robert's death. Because in that moment, I remembered something I had completely forgotten. 3 days before he died, Robert had handed me a manila envelope. "Antonia, put this in the drawer of your dresser. If something happens to me, open it after a while, but only when you feel ready." I had put it away without much thought. After the funeral, with so much grief and so many arrangements, I simply forgot. But there it was, waiting for me at home. The nurse called me to go into the office. The doctor examined me and said I was in good health for my age, that I just needed to rest more and eat better. I nodded and smiled, but my mind was elsewhere. I was thinking about that envelope, about the coldness in Angela's voice, and how Edward was probably behind all of it. He had never liked me. He always saw me as a nuisance. I left the office and walked slowly to the bus stop. I no longer had a car, according to Angela. But as I waited, I couldn't help but smile. There was something poetic about all of this. My daughter thought she had left me with nothing. But what she didn't know was that Robert, my dear Robert, had always been a man who planned ahead. The bus arrived and I sat by the window. I watched the city go by. The houses, the stores, people rushing everywhere, all with their own tragedies, their own secrets. I had my own too, and I was about to discover them. When I got home, I went straight to my room. I opened the dresser drawer, and there was the manila envelope, exactly where I had left it. My hands trembled slightly as I picked it up. I could feel there were several documents inside. Robert had written my name on the front in his neat handwriting. I sat on the bed we had shared for so many years and took a deep breath. It was starting to get dark outside, and the house was filling with those familiar shadows that no longer scared me. I opened the envelope slowly, as if unwrapping a birthday gift. What I found inside would change everything. What I found in that envelope took my breath away. There were legal documents, deeds, bank certificates, and a handwritten letter from Robert. My eyes filled with tears as I read his familiar handwriting. My dear Antonia, if you are reading this, it means I am no longer with you. Forgive me for not telling you everything while I was alive, but I wanted to protect you from worries. Over the years, I invested our savings in properties and businesses. We don't just have the beach house. We have 6 other properties, including the apartment building where Angela and Edward live. We also have shares in 3 companies that are worth more than you can imagine. You are rich, my love. You always were rich, but now you are on paper too. My hands trembled as I looked through the documents. There were deeds to houses in different city neighborhoods, a downtown condo, a small motel on the coast, and indeed the 20-story apartment building where my daughter lived. Robert had been the silent owner for the past 10 years, but had put everything in the name of a company I didn't know about. And, according to the papers, I was the sole heiress of that company. There were also bank statements for accounts I never knew existed, with numbers that seemed unreal. Robert had been a bus driver for 40 years, but apparently he had also been a very smart investor. Every penny we saved, every sacrifice we made, he had multiplied in silence, and I never knew anything. In the letter, Robert explained that he had kept it all a secret because he didn't want me to worry about money or for Angela to know about our real financial situation. You know, our daughter Antonia, if she knew we had so much money, her attitude would change. I want her to love us for who we are, not what we have. What irony. Our daughter had left us thinking we had nothing when in reality we had everything. That night, I couldn't sleep. I walked around the house, touching the old furniture and the knickknacks Angela had always criticized for being outdated. I looked at the family photos on the wall, especially the one where she was 5 years old, sitting on Robert's lap and laughing. Where did that sweet little girl go? When did she become so cold, so calculating? The next day, early in the morning, the phone rang. It was Angela again. Her voice sounded different, softer, but I had already learned to be wary of those shifts in tone. Mom, how are you? I wanted to tell you we already transferred the money from the house and the car. We deposited your share into your account. It's not much, but it'll help you live for a few months while you look for something smaller. My share? I asked, keeping my voice calm. Yes, Mom. We obviously weren't going to leave you with nothing. We gave you 0%. That's fair, right? We need the money for our investment in Europe. Edward has an incredible business opportunity over there. 30% of my own things. How? Generous. I see. Honey. And when do you leave? This afternoon. Our bags are already packed. We'll be gone for at least 6 months. Maybe more if the business goes well. But don't worry, Mom. When we get back, we'll help you find a small apartment. Something that fits your needs, fits my needs. As if she knew what my needs were. Okay, Angela, have a safe trip. Oh, Mom, I knew you'd understand. You've always been so compassionate. We love you so much. And she hung up. I stood there with the phone in my hand. And for the first time in months, I laughed. I laughed like I hadn't since Robert died. The situation was so absurd. It was comical. My daughter had robbed me, kicked me out of my own house, talked to me with unbearable condescension, and all to fund a European adventure that would probably be a disaster. But what bothered me most wasn't the money. It was the ease with which she had discarded me. 45 years of my life dedicated to her, of sacrifice, of unconditional love, and she had erased me from her life with a 2-minute phone call. That was what truly hurt. I checked my bank account online. Sure, enough they had deposited an amount that probably seemed generous to them, but to me was a mockery. They had sold the beach house for much less than it was worth, likely because they needed the cash quickly, and they had sold Robert's truck for a pittance. That afternoon, from my window, I watched. Angela and Edward load their suitcases into a cab. He was carrying 2 huge suitcases. She had a very expensive-looking carry-on bag. I watched them laugh, kiss, and make plans. They looked like two teenagers excited for an adventure. They never looked toward my window, never said goodbye. When the cab drove away, I sat in the kitchen with a cup of tea and Robert's documents spread out on the table. I had to make some decisions. I could call a lawyer, reclaim my properties, and get back everything they had taken. But something told me there was a better way to handle this, a more educational way. I called Mr. Peterson, the lawyer who had handled Robert's affairs. He had been at the funeral, had given me his condolences, and had told me to call if I ever needed anything. Well, now I needed him. Mrs. Brooks, it's good to hear from you. How are you? I'm doing well, Mr. Peterson. I need to see you, urgently. I found some documents from Robert that I don't quite understand. Of course, you can come to my office tomorrow morning. I'll be there. That night, for the first time in months, I slept soundly. I dreamed of Robert. He was sitting in his favorite chair, reading the newspaper, just like every morning. And when he saw me, he smiled and said, "It's about time, my love. It's about time you stood up for yourself." I woke up with a strange feeling. It wasn't exactly happiness, but it wasn't the sadness I had felt for so many months either. It was something like determination. For the first time since Robert's death, I had a clear purpose. I was going to get back what was mine, but not in the way Angela expected. The next morning, I got dressed with more care than usual. I put on my wine-colored dress, the one Robert always said made me look elegant. I fixed my hair and put on a little makeup, and when I looked in the mirror, I saw a woman I hadn't seen in a long time. I saw a strong woman, Mr. Peterson's. Office was downtown. It was an old but elegant building with marble floors and large windows. He greeted me with a warm smile, but when I showed him the documents, his expression changed completely. Mrs. Brooks, this is much more than I imagined. Robert was a very smart man. Look, according to these papers, you are the owner of... I know, Mr. Peterson. I've already reviewed them. What I need to know is what I can do legally. Mr. Peterson explained that everything was in order, that the documents were legitimate, and that I was the rightful owner of all those properties. He also confirmed something I had already suspected. The sale of the beach house was illegal because Angela had no right to sell it. We can get the house back immediately, Mrs. Brooks, and we can also proceed with legal action against your daughter for fraud. No, Mr. Peterson, I don't want to proceed with legal action. I want to do this another way. I want everything to remain a secret for now. Can you help me? He looked at me with curiosity, but he nodded. Of course, you are my client. What do you need? I need you to discreetly get the beach house back. Do what is necessary to nullify that fraudulent sale, and I need you to help me gain real control of all my properties, especially the building where my daughter lives. I understand. It will be a process that takes a few weeks, but it's completely feasible. Perfect. And Mr. Peterson, I need no one to know I am behind all of this, at least for now. When I left his office, I felt as if I had woken up from a very long dream. I walked through the downtown streets watching the people, the buildings, the life that was going on as normal. But for me, everything had changed. I had a plan. The following weeks were the strangest of my life. Officially, I was a poor widow who had been abandoned by her daughter. But in secret, I was a rich woman silently orchestrating the recovery of my assets. Mr. Peterson worked efficiently, and every few days he would call me with updates on the progress of the legal proceedings. I decided to stay in my house for the time being. It was mine, after all, although Angela probably expected me to move into a single room. Every morning I would wake up, have breakfast at the same table where Robert and I had shared so many years, and then go for a walk in the neighborhood. The neighbors would greet me with that mix of pity and curiosity they reserved for recent widows. Aurora, my lifelong neighbor, came up to me one afternoon while I was watering the plants in the front. "Antonia, dear, is it true that Angela went to Europe and left you all alone?" "Yes, Aurora. She went with Edward. They have business, plans over there. And how are you going to live, sweetie? We all know Robert didn't leave much money. If you only knew, I thought. Don't worry, Aurora. I'll be fine. Do you need anything? I can bring you some food, help you with groceries. You're very kind, but I'm fine, really. Aurora looked at me with that expression I knew well. It was the same look I had received after the funeral. Compassion mixed with a little relief that it wasn't her tragedy. Well, you know where to find me if you need anything. These conversations were constantly repeated. The butcher, the baker, the lady at the corner store. Everyone spoke to me with that soft tone they use with the unfortunate, and I would nod, smile, and thank them for their concern. But inside, a part of me enjoyed this performance. It was like living a double life. Mr. Peterson called me one Wednesday morning. Mrs. Brooks, I have good news. I was able to nullify the sale of the beach house. The buyers didn't know the sale was fraudulent, so they got their money back without any problems. The house is yours again. Excellent, Mr. Peterson. And the building where Angela lives, that one is more complicated. Technically, you've always been the owner through the company, but we need to make some administrative changes so that you have direct control. That should take another 2 weeks. Perfect. Keep me informed. After hanging up, I sat in the kitchen with my coffee and thought about Angela. She had been in Europe for 3 weeks, and I hadn't heard anything from her. Not a call, not a message, not even a postcard. To her, I had ceased to exist the moment she got the money she needed, but I knew that was going to change soon. I decided to visit the beach house. I took the bus to the coast, the same route Robert and I had taken hundreds of times. The house was exactly as I remembered it, small, painted cream-colored with a porch overlooking the ocean. The new owners had put some potted plants on the steps, but other than that, everything was the same. I sat on the curb across the street and looked at it for an hour. I remembered summer afternoons when Angela was little, running on the beach and building sandcastles. Robert grilling fish on the barbecue while I made salads in the kitchen. Angela bringing friends, then boyfriends, then Edward. All those happy moments that she had reduced to a simple commercial transaction. An older gentleman came out of the house and saw me sitting there. He approached me with curiosity. "Are you okay, ma'am?" "Yes, thank you. I'm just remembering. I knew the former owners. Yes, I knew them very well. What a shame about what happened. They told us the elderly lady was very sick and needed to sell fast. We did so. Hot. It was a steal, but it turns out the sale wasn't legal. We had to give the house back." "Did you know them personally?" "No. We did everything through intermediaries, but they told us the daughter was handling everything because the mother couldn't." What a sad situation. If you only knew how sad it really was, I thought. "Well, I'm glad you didn't lose your money." "Yes. Luckily, everything worked out well, although now we have to look for another house. We liked this one a lot. I left there with a heavy heart. It wasn't just the money that hurt. It was the ease with which Angela had lied about me. She had made up a story about my illness. She had used my supposed vulnerability to justify her actions. To her, I wasn't a person with feelings, but an obstacle that had to be removed. That night, I called Mr. Peterson again. "Mr. Peterson, I need you to help me with something else. I want to get Robert's truck back, too." "That will be more difficult, Mrs. Brooks. The truck was in your name, but your daughter had a power of attorney that allowed her to sell it. How is that possible? Apparently you signed that power of attorney a few months ago after your husband's death. Don't you remember?" There it was, the moment. Angela had started planning all of this. I vaguely remembered signing some papers she had brought to me, telling me they were to facilitate the funeral and inheritance arrangements. I had been so confused by grief that I signed without reading. How naive I had been. "I understand, Mr. Peterson. Is there any way to get it back? We can try." "But it will be more complicated. We would need to prove that you signed that power of attorney under deception or coercion. Let's do it. I want to get back everything they took from me." Over the next few weeks, I developed a strange routine. In the mornings, I was the poor widow everyone knew. I would go out to buy necessities, talk to the neighbors, and keep up appearances. But in the afternoons, I became a businesswoman. I would study Robert's documents, talk to Mr. Peterson, and plan my next move. I learned things about finance I never thought I would need to know. I discovered that Robert had been much smarter than I thought. Every one of his investments had been carefully calculated. The building where Angela lived, for example, wasn't just profitable from rent. It was in an area that was rapidly appreciating. I also discovered that Edward, Angela's husband, had a lot of debt. He had taken out loans using the apartment they lived in as collateral, not knowing he wasn't the real owner. When the banks figured this out, he was going to be in serious trouble. Mr. Peterson called me one Friday with important news. "Mrs. Brooks, we've finished all the paperwork. You now have total control of all your properties. I also got Robert's truck and back." The buyer turned out to be an acquaintance of mine, and when I explained the situation, he agreed to return it in exchange for a small compensation. Excellent work, Mr. Peterson. Now, I need you to help me with one more thing. I want you to send a letter to my daughter. What kind of letter? An eviction notice. There was silence on the other end of the line. "Mrs. Brooks, are you sure you want to do this?" "Completely sure. She decided I wasn't important in her life. Now she's going to find out how important I really am." "I understand. Do you want me to send it to Europe?" "No. I want you to give it to her when she gets back. I have a feeling." "Elling, it's going to be very soon." I wasn't wrong. That same afternoon, Aurora came running to my house with fresh neighborhood news. "Antonia, did you know that Edward is in trouble with the bank? My brother-in-law who works there told me they're investigating some loans he took out using the apartment they live in as collateral, but it turns out the apartment isn't his." "Really?" "Yes. And it seems Angela didn't know anything. They're saying she's going to have to come back from Europe to sort out this mess." "What a complicated situation." "Yes. And the worst part is apparently Edward lied to her about the business in Europe. There was no business. He just wanted to escape the debts he had here." Perfect. Everything was working out exactly as I had expected. Angela had trusted Edward, had sacrificed her relationship with me for him, and now she was discovering that he wasn't the man she thought he was. That night, I sat on the porch with a cup of tea and looked at the stars. Robert used to say that the stars were the souls of people who had lived a full life watching over their families from the sky. If that was true, then he was up there, watching his plan unfold perfectly. "Thank you, my love," I said to the sky. "Thank you for taking care of me even after your death." The next day, Mr. Peterson called me early. "Mrs. Brooks, I have some news. Your daughter just arrived in the country. She's at the airport alone." "Alone?" "Yes. Apparently Edward stayed in Europe. There are rumors they had a very big fight." "I see. Did you send the letter? I'm going to send it today." "She should receive it tomorrow." I hung up the phone and stood there in the kitchen, feeling a mix of nervousness and anticipation. After so many weeks of silent planning, the moment for the first real move had finally arrived. Angela was about to discover that her mother was not the defenseless victim she believed. Angela arrived at her apartment on Tuesday night. I knew this because Aurora, who seemed to have informants throughout the neighborhood, came to tell me the next day, "Antonia, your daughter came back last night. I saw her go in with one suitcase, but she looked terrible, pale, with dark circles under her eyes, as if she had been crying the whole flight. Alone, completely alone. And something strange, Antonia. When the doorman asked her for the keys, she didn't have them. She had to ask the superintendent to let her in with the emergency copy." Interesting. Edward had the keys, which meant he had probably decided not to come back. Or maybe Angela had discovered something about him and had fled. In any case, my daughter was back, and very soon she would receive my little welcome gift. Mr. Peterson called me that same afternoon. "Mrs. Brooks, the letter was delivered an hour ago. The doorman confirmed that your daughter received it in person." "Perfect. How long did we give her?" 30 days to vacate the apartment as per legal standards. "But Mrs. Brooks, are you sure you want to do this? She is your daughter after all." "Mr. Peterson, my daughter kicked me out of my own house with a 2-minute phone call. She sold my things without asking. She treated me like garbage. Now she's going to learn that actions have consequences. I understand. I just wanted to make sure you had considered all the implications. I have considered them, Mr. Peterson. All of them. That night, I couldn't sleep. I stayed awake, imagining Angela's face when she read the letter. The initial confusion, then the disbelief, then the panic. Would probably think it was a mistake, that someone was trying to scam her. But when she called to verify, she would discover that everything was completely legal. The next day, as if she had been waiting for my call, the phone rang at 8 o'clock in the morning. It was Angela, and her voice sounded desperate. Mom, I need to talk to you urgently. Good morning, honey. How was Europe? Mom, I don't have time for that right now. I received a very strange letter yesterday. It says I have to vacate my apartment in 30 days. It must be a mistake, right? Do you know anything about this? An eviction notice. How strange. From whom? From a company I've never heard of. It's called, wait, let me find the letter. Robert Investments, Inc. Do you know this company? Robert had used his own name for the company. How poetic. No, honey. I've never heard that name. Are you sure the letter is legitimate? That's what I want to find out. Mom, I need you to help me. I don't know what to do. Edward left me in Europe. He ran off with another woman, and now I come back to this. I don't understand what's happening. There was the confirmation. Edward had abandoned her, probably when the money ran out or when he realized that the legal problems at home were more serious than he thought. Poor Angela. She had sacrificed her family for a worthless man. I'm so sorry, honey. Where are you now? I'm in the apartment, but I don't know for how long. Mom, can I come see you? I need to talk to someone. I don't have anyone else. The irony was perfect. Now that she was left without the man for whom she had abandoned me, she remembered she had a mother. Of course, honey. Come over whenever you want. I'm on my way. I hung up the phone and looked at myself in the mirror. I had to be perfect for this performance. I put on my most conservative gray dress, tied my hair in a simple bun, and practiced my expression of a worried but resigned mother. When Angela arrived, she would see exactly what she expected to see. A poor, vulnerable widow who had been abandoned by her own daughter. Angela arrived an hour later. When I opened the door, I was surprised at how bad she looked. She had lost weight, had deep circles under her eyes, and her expensive clothes looked wrinkled and unkempt. Her eyes were red from crying. Mom, she said, and for a moment I thought she was going to hug me, but she stopped as if she suddenly remembered how things had ended between us. Come in, honey. Do you want some coffee? Yes, please. We sat in the kitchen at the same table where I had read Robert's documents weeks ago. Angela looked small in that chair, lost, just like when she was a child, and came to tell me about her school problems. Mom, I'm so sorry for the way I left. I know I didn't treat you well. It's in the past, honey. No, it's not. I treated you badly. I said horrible things, and now, her voice broke. Now I have no one. What happened with Edward? He left with a 25-year-old hotel waitress in Paris. It turns out there was never any business in Europe. It was all a lie. He just wanted to escape the debts he had here and use the money from the sale of your house to fund his adventure. All the debts? Yes, Mom. So many debts. It seems he had been taking out loans for years, using the apartment we lived in as collateral. But now I find out he wasn't the owner of the apartment. How is that possible? Here was my opportunity. I don't know, honey. Property matters are very complicated. The problem is that now the banks are coming after me for his debts. They say, since we were married, I'm also responsible. And on top of that, this eviction notice. Mom, I don't know what to do. I don't have money. I don't have a job. I don't have anywhere to live. She started to cry. Real tears of genuine desperation, and for a moment my mother's heart softened. I wanted to hug her, console her, tell her everything would be okay, but then I remembered the coldness in her voice when she called me from the doctor's office, the ease with which she had discarded me, the way she had talked to me as if I were a burden. Did you talk to a lawyer about the letter? I don't have money for a lawyer, Mom. We spent all the money in Europe. Edward took what little was left when he ran off with that woman. So, what are you going to do? I don't know. I thought maybe I could stay with you for a while, just until I find a job and can get a small place to live. There was the question I had been waiting for. After kicking me out of my own house, after selling my things, after treating me like garbage, she now wanted me to rescue her. She wanted the poor widow she had created to save her from the consequences of her own actions. Of course, honey. This will always be your home. Angela looked at me with surprise, as if she hadn't expected it to be so easy. Really, Mom? After everything that happened? You are my daughter, Angela. That will never change. She got up, and this time she hugged me. It was a desperate hug from someone drowning and clinging to the only thing they can find. I hugged her, back, too, but not with the unconditional love from before. Now there was calculation in my embrace. Strategy. Thank you, Mom. I promise I'll find a job soon. I won't be a burden. Don't worry about that now. Rest, recover, and then we'll see what your options are. Angela left that afternoon to get some things from her apartment. I stayed in the kitchen, thinking about how easy it had been. She had come to me exactly as I had planned, broken, desperate, with no options, and best of all, she suspected nothing. To her, I was still the poor abandoned mother who needed her compassion. But this was only the first part of my plan. Having her live with me would give me the perfect opportunity for the next phase. I was going to let her settle in, feel safe, and believe she had found a refuge in my house. And then, when she least expected it, I was going to teach her the difference between being poor by choice and being poor by consequence. That night, I called Mr. Peterson. Mr. Peterson, I need you to do something else for me. Tell me, Mrs. Brooks, I want you to investigate Edward's debts. I want to know exactly how much he owes to whom and what legal options I have to separate them from my daughter. That will take time, but it's feasible. Perfect. And Mr. Peterson, I want you to keep this in absolute secret. No one can know I am behind this investigation. Of course, Mrs. Brooks, may I ask what your final plan is? My plan, Mr. Peterson, is very simple. I'm going to save my daughter, but first she has to understand what it truly means to hit rock bottom. When I hung up, I poured myself a glass of the wine Robert had been saving for special occasions. It had been a long time since I'd had a special occasion like this one. The game had begun, and for the first time in months, I had all the good cards in my hand. Angela moved into my house the next day. She arrived with 2 suitcases and a cardboard box, all that was left of her previous life. I watched her unpack in her old room, the same one she had slept in during her teenage years, and I could see the humiliation in every one of her movements. She had gone from living in a luxury condo to taking refuge in her childhood bedroom. "Mom, I found this in the apartment," she said, showing me a manila envelope. "It was among Edward's things. It has your name on it. It was another one of Robert's envelopes." My heart sped up, but I kept my composure. My name? How strange. Yes, look. She showed me the envelope. Indeed, it had my name written on it in Robert's handwriting, but this envelope was different from the one I had found in my dresser. This one was smaller, newer. Maybe Edward found it among Dad's things when he died and forgot to give it to me. Angela said, "It's possible. Can I see it?" I opened the envelope in her presence. Inside was a short letter and a small key. The letter said, "Antonia, if you are reading this after having received the main envelope, it means our daughter is going through a difficult time. This key opens a safety deposit box at the Central Bank downtown branch. The number is 247. There is something there that can help. You help her, but use it wisely. With eternal love, Robert." Angela read the letter over my shoulder. A safety deposit box? Dad had a safety deposit box. I had no idea. I didn't either. I lied. Your father never told me about this. Do you think we should go see what's in there? I don't know, honey. Maybe it's better to leave things as they are. I have a proposal. What is it? I want us to turn this house into a temporary shelter for women who are leaving situations of domestic violence, a place where they can stay while they rebuild their lives. It was the perfect proposal. Robert would have loved the idea that his beach house would serve to help other families. I think that's a beautiful idea, honey. We can use some of the foundation's resources to maintain it, and I can oversee the program through my job. Are you sure you want to turn our family sanctuary into that, Mom? The best sanctuaries are the ones that are shared. Dad always said that a house isn't truly a home until it opens its doors to other people who need love. He was right. Robert had always been generous with our home, inviting relatives, friends, and neighbors who needed a place to stay. We returned home that night with a new project and a completely renewed relationship. We were no longer mother and daughter united by obligation or need. We were two women who had consciously chosen to build a life together based on love, respect, and a common purpose. That night, before falling asleep, I spoke to Robert in silence. We did it, my love. Our daughter finally understood what truly matters. And for the first time since his death, I felt he answered me. I always knew you would. You're both stronger than you think. Justice had arrived not as revenge, but as education, not as punishment, but as transformation. And in the end, we had both gained something much more valuable than money. We had gained an authentic relationship built on a solid foundation that no future crisis could destroy. Did you like my story? And which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you liked the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward. D to your comments on the story. On the screen, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story. With love and respect.